The sound hits you first. Not loud, but insistent. That generic iPhone alarm tone that everyone in America knows by heart. It's 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in March 2025, and the screen shows a temperature of 38 degrees in Austin, Texas. A hand emerges from under a gray comforter and slaps the phone blindly. The screen goes dark for exactly 4 minutes. Then it starts again. This time, the hand doesn't just slap it. It grabs the phone, pulls it under the covers. Blue light illuminates the fabric from inside. The scrolling begins before the eyes are even fully open. TikTok, Instagram, 3 Slack notifications already, even though work doesn't start for another hour. A text from mom that came in at a M. A Venmo request from someone for last week's brunch. This is how mornings die into 0 to 5, across town. In a different apartment but the exact same scene, someone else is doing the same thing. And in Chicago, and in Seattle, and in Miami, thousands of professionals, ages 25 to 40, with degrees in jobs and potential, starting every single day the exact same way, not with purpose, not with intention. With the sum, let me paint you a picture of someone specific. Let's call her Maya. She's 29 years old. She lives in a 1-bedroom apartment in the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Seattle. She works in marketing for a tech company that went fully remote in 2020 and never looked back. Her salary is $87,000 a year. By any external measure, she's winning. But here's what the resume doesn't show. It's now 8:15 a.m. Maya has been awake for almost 90 minutes. She has scrolled through approximately 200 posts. She has watched 7 different people she hasn't spoken to since college make avocado toast. She has seen 3 former co-workers get promotions she quietly hoped would be hers. She has laughed at 2 dog videos and felt a strange emptiness after both. Her coffee, made at a M, sits cold on the nightstand. A ring of brown stains the wood where she forgot to use a coaster. She's been meaning to buy coasters for 8 months. The blinds are still closed. They've been closed for 4 days. At 8:22 a.m., her laptop, which sits on a small desk in the corner of the room, makes a sound. A soft chime. It's her manager, David, messaging the team channel. Just a casual good morning. Hope everyone had a good weekend. It's Monday. Maya sees a notification at the top of her phone screen. Her thumb hovers over it. Then it doesn't. She scrolls past it. She'll respond in a minute. Just one more video. 47 minutes later, at 9:09 a.m., she finally opens her laptop. She's still in the gray sweatpants she slept in. Her hair is pulled back messily. She hasn't brushed her teeth. She types a reply to David. Morning. Great weekend, thanks. Ready to crush this week. She adds a fire emoji because that's what the team does. The light sits on the screen for a moment before she hits send. She hits send anyway. This is a gap. The space between who we are and who we tell the world we are. And it's getting wider every single day. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. And I want you to actually sit with it for a second. Don't scroll past it. When was the last time you did something you said you were going to do immediately, without delay, without negotiation with yourself? Not something for work, where the deadline forced you. Not something for someone else, where their expectation pushed you. Something for you. Something you wanted for your own life. When was the last time you actually followed through with yourself? For Maya, she can't remember. She thinks maybe last November, when she signed up for that hot yoga class and actually went 3 times in 1 week. But then the holidays happened, and then it was dark all the time. And then the class felt intimidating to go back to because everyone else would be ahead. So now she pays $189 a month for a ClassPass membership she uses maybe twice. She has a Peloton app subscription she opened exactly 11 times in 2024. She has a bookshelf with 17 books she bought because she saw them on Instagram and wanted to feel like the kind of person who reads. The most recent purchase, a hardcover called Atomic Habits, still has a receipt stuck inside page 23. She got to page 23 4 months ago. Here's what the self-help industry won't tell you. They'll tell you to visualize success. They'll tell you to make vision boards and morning routines and gratitude journals. Maya has tried all of it. She bought the $45 planner with the gold foil cover. She wrote down her goals for 2025 in neat handwriting back on January 1st. Lose the quarantine weight. Read 25 books. Get promoted. Travel somewhere new. It's March. She's gained 4 pounds. She's read approximately 1.5 books if you count the one she didn't finish. The promotion cycle came and went, and she didn't even apply because the thought of updating her resume felt like climbing a mountain. And travel. She booked a flight to Portland to see her sister in February and canceled the night before because she was too tired to pack. Too tired. That's the phrase we use. I'm too tired. I'm exhausted. I just need to rest. But here's the thing Maya noticed last night. Around p.m., when she was scrolling for the 400th time that day. She wasn't tired. Not really. She had done nothing physically demanding. She had sat in meetings where her camera was off and she answered exactly 3 emails. She had microwaved a frozen meal for lunch. She had watched 4 episodes of a show she didn't even like. She wasn't tired. She was something else. Something heavier. The apartment is quiet now. It's 10:14 p.m. on that same Monday. Maya is in bed again, the laptop open, the blue light washing over her face. She's watching a video of a woman in Los Angeles who wakes up at a.m. every day, drinks celery juice, works out, journals, and runs a 6-figure business before a.m. The comments are full of people saying things like queen and goals and I could never. Maya looks at the woman's face. Perfect skin, perfect lighting, perfect life. She feels the familiar mixture of inspiration and self-loathing that these videos always trigger. For a moment, she thinks, maybe tomorrow I'll be that person. She closes the laptop at 11:37 p.m. She sets her alarm for a.m. She tells herself this time will be different. At 7:01 a.m. on Tuesday, the alarm goes off. Her hand reaches for the phone. Nothing has changed. Why? Why does this loop keep spinning? Why do smart, capable, employed adults keep finding themselves trapped in this cycle of intention without action? Here's what the science says, and it might surprise you. In 2024, researchers at New York University published a study on procrastination that looked at brain activity in real time. They put people in fMRI machines and gave them tasks. Some tasks were described as meaningful and important. Others were described as optional or trivial. Here's what they found. When people delayed starting a task, it wasn't because they were lazy. It wasn't because they didn't care. It was because their brains literally registered the task as a threat. The same parts of the brain that light up when you see a snake or a bear light up when you think about starting that project you've been avoiding. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and a blank spreadsheet that represents your entire future. It just knows threat, and its job is to keep you safe. And the safest thing to do when faced with a threat is to avoid it. To scroll, to clean the apartment, to organize your email folders, to do anything except the one thing that matters. This is why willpower doesn't work. You can't think your way out of a biological response any more than you can think your way out of bleeding. It's not a moral failing. It's a hardware issue. But here's the part that changes everything. The same research found that this threat response lasts, on average, between 5 and 10 seconds. After that, if you're still alive, the brain calms down and realizes there's no actual danger. 5 to 10 seconds. That's it. That's the window. Maya doesn't know this yet. She doesn't know that the voice in her head saying later or not now or I'm just not feeling it is not her true self. It's a survival mechanism designed for a world that no longer exists. A world without deadlines and deliverables and quarterly reviews. She thinks something is wrong with her. She's been thinking that since 2020, honestly. Since the pandemic blurred every line between work and home and day and night and motivation and despair. She's been carrying this weight for 5 years now. This feeling that she's capable of more but somehow never delivers, and she's not alone. A Gallup poll from February 2025 found that 68% of remote workers report feeling chronically behind on their personal goals. Not work goals, personal goals. The things they actually want for themselves. The things that make life feel like it has meaning. 68%. That's more than 2 out of 3 people reading this right now. We are a generation of people who have mastered the art of looking busy while feeling empty. We respond to emails instantly but haven't responded to our own deepest desires in years. We show up for meetings on time but show up for ourselves whenever we get around to it. And the worst part, we know it. We feel it every night when we close our laptops and look around at the life we've built and wonder how we got here. We feel it when we see friends getting married, getting promoted, getting published, getting everything we told ourselves we'd get by now. We feel it in the quiet moments, the ones without notifications, when we're just alone with ourselves and the truth we've been avoiding. The truth is this: you're not lazy. You're not broken. You're not undisciplined or unmotivated or any of the other words you've been using to describe yourself when you fall short. You're just stuck in a pattern your brain learned during the strangest 5-year period in modern human history. A period when uncertainty was the only certainty. When planning felt pointless because everything kept changing. When surviving felt like enough because some days it genuinely was. But that period is ending. The world is moving again. And if you don't move with it, you'll get left behind. Not because you're incapable, because you're still using survival strategies for a war that's already over. Here's what's coming in this story. I'm going to show you something that most people never see. A trick, a technique, a 7-second intervention that cuts through all of this noise and gets you moving when nothing else can. It's not meditation. It's not manifestation. It's not magic. It's biology. It's a thing the self-help industry doesn't want you to know, because if you knew it, you wouldn't need their courses and their coaching and their $45 planners. It's simple enough that a child could do it. Powerful enough that it actually works. But before I show you that, I need you to understand something important. The reason you're still reading this right now isn't because you're curious about productivity tips. It's because somewhere, deep down, you still believe in the person you could become. The version of you who follows through. The version of you who actually does the things you say you're going to do. That person is still in there. They haven't gone anywhere. They're just buried under 5 years of coping mechanisms and bad habits and the slow erosion of self-trust. The question is whether you're ready to dig them out. Most people aren't. Most people would rather stay comfortable in their discomfort than face the temporary pain of change. Most people will watch this whole video, feel inspired for a few hours, and then go back to their old patterns by tomorrow morning. That's okay. That's their choice. But you're still here. You made it to the end of this section. That means something. It means you haven't given up yet. It means there's still a flicker, and flickers, with the right conditions, can become fires. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the trap. The specific false belief that keeps smart people stuck. The villain of this story isn't what you think. It's not laziness. It's something much sneakier, much more convincing, and much harder to spot in your own life. But once you see it, you can't unsee it, and that's when everything starts to change. The clock on Maya's nightstand reads 11:59 p.m. She's watching one more video. One more before sleep. It's a guy in his early 30s, sitting in a nice apartment, talking directly to the camera. His voice is calm. His eyes are kind. He's saying something about a 7-second trick she almost scrolls past. She's seen a million of these. Everyone has a secret. Everyone has a hack. It's all just content, just noise, just more stuff to watch instead of doing. But something makes her stop. Something in the way he looks at the camera. Like he's not performing. Like he's actually talking to her. The reason you're still watching this, he says, isn't because you're curious about productivity. It's because somewhere, deep down, you still believe in the person you could become. Maya feels something catch in her chest. A tiny hitch. A flicker. She watches a rest. When it ends, she doesn't scroll to the next video. She just sits there in the dark. The screen dimming, the room going quiet. For the first time in a long time, she doesn't feel inspired. She doesn't feel motivated. She feels something simpler. She feels seen. And that, as it turns out, is where every real change begins. Not with a plan. Not with a goal. Not with a vision board. With someone finally telling you the truth about who you are and who you're not. You're not lazy. You're just waiting for permission to start. Tomorrow, you're going to get it. The morning after is always the same. Maya wakes up on Wednesday and for about 3 seconds, she forgets everything. The alarm hasn't gone off yet. The room is dark. Her body is warm under the blankets. For 3 seconds, she exists in a perfect state of nothingness. No thoughts, no guilt, no pressure. Then she remembers a video she watched last night. She remembers a man's voice saying she still believes in the person she could become. She remembers how it felt to be seen. And then she remembers that she did nothing about it. She watched the whole thing, felt the feelings, and then went to sleep. This morning, she's exactly the same person she was yesterday. The alarm goes off at a m. Her hand reaches for the phone, but this time, something stops her. Just for a second, her hand hovers over the screen. She looks at the gray comforter, at the cold coffee on the nightstand, at the closed blinds that have been closed for 5 days now. She doesn't pick up the phone. She just lies there, staring at the ceiling, for 11 minutes. No scrolling, no distractions. Just her and the quiet and the growing realization that something is deeply wrong with the way she's living. At 7:11 a.m., she finally picks up the phone. But instead of opening Instagram, she opens her notes app. She types 3 words. What is wrong with me? Then she deletes them and gets out of bed. This is where most stories stop. This is where the person has a moment of clarity, feels the inspiration, and then nothing changes. Because inspiration without understanding is just entertainment. You can watch 100 videos, read 100 books, listen to 100 podcasts, and still end up exactly where you started. The question isn't what you feel. The question is what you believe. And Maya, like most of us, believes something about herself that isn't true. She believes she's lazy. She's been believing it for years. Every time she fails to follow through, she adds another piece of evidence to the case. See, I didn't go to the gym. I am lazy. See, I scrolled for 3 hours. I am lazy. See, I canceled on my sister again. I am lazy. The case is airtight. The verdict has been rendered. She is a lazy person. But here's what she doesn't know. Here's what almost none of us know. Laziness isn't real. Let me explain what I mean. In 2023, a team of researchers at Stanford University published a study that looked at procrastination across different cultures and different age groups. They wanted to understand what actually causes people to delay important tasks. They followed 1,200 participants for 6 months, tracking their habits, their beliefs, and their brain activity. Here's what they found. Not a single person in the study described themselves as lazy and then took action. Not one. Every person who identified as lazy stayed stuck. Every person who broke through stopped using the word altogether. The word itself is a trap. When you call yourself lazy, you're not describing a problem. You're declaring an identity. And identities are sticky. They don't change easily. Once you believe you're a lazy person, every future failure confirms it and every future success feels like an accident. I got to the gym today? Must be a fluke. I finished that project early? Must be because the deadline was scary. I cooked a healthy meal? Must be because I had extra energy for once. The lazy identity doesn't allow you to take credit for your wins. It only allows you to collect evidence for your losses. This is why willpower strategies don't work for long. This is why morning routines fail by February. This is why New Year's resolutions die before the confetti is even cleaned up. You're trying to fix a behavior by changing what you do. But the behavior isn't a problem. The belief is a problem. Let me tell you about someone else. Not Maya this time. Someone real, though I won't use his real name. Let's call him James. James was 34 years old in 2024. He lived in a high-rise apartment in downtown Chicago, right on the river. The kind of place with floor-to-ceiling windows and a doorman and a gym in the building that he never used. He worked in finance. He made good money. He had a girlfriend who loved him and parents who were proud of him. And he was miserable, not sad miserable, not depressed miserable, just stuck miserable. The kind of miserable where you can't quite point to what's wrong because everything looks right from the outside. James had a habit. Every evening, he'd come home from work, order dinner from the same 3 restaurants, and watch YouTube until midnight. He'd watch videos about productivity, about fitness, about entrepreneurship. He'd watch guys his age who had built businesses and gotten in shape and traveled the world. He'd watch them and feel inspired for about an hour. Then he'd feel terrible for about 2 hours. Then he'd go to sleep and do it all again the next day. One night in October, he watched a video that changed something. It wasn't a special video. It wasn't famous or viral. It was just some guy talking about the difference between identity and behavior. The guy said something that James couldn't shake. "You're not lazy," the guy said. "You're just someone who's been acting lazy because it's safer than trying and failing." James paused the video. He sat in his $4,000 apartment with a river view and the nice furniture and a life that looked perfect from the outside. And he realized something for the first time. He wasn't avoiding things because he didn't want to do them. He was avoiding things because he was terrified of doing them wrong. This is a hidden belief. The one nobody talks about. The one that keeps millions of smart, capable people stuck in cycles of procrastination and shame. It's not laziness. It's fear. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of starting something and quitting. Fear of finding out that your best effort still isn't enough to succeed. Fear of what people will think if you try and fail. Fear of what you think of yourself if you try and fail. Fear is smart. Fear is protective. Fear kept our ancestors alive by warning them away from danger. But fear is also stupid. Fear can't tell the difference between a lion and a LinkedIn post. Fear can't tell the difference between a snake and a blank page. Fear just sees uncertainty and screams danger. And when fear screams, you freeze, you scroll, you organize your desk. You reply to emails you've been ignoring. You do anything except the one thing that actually matters. Because the one thing that actually matters is the one thing that might prove you're not as capable as you hope you are. This is the trap. The trap is believing that if you don't try, you can't fail. The trap is believing that tomorrow will be different, even though you're doing the same things today. The trap is calling yourself lazy instead of admitting that you're scared. James sat in his apartment that night and thought about all the things he'd been avoiding. He'd been avoiding applying for the promotion he wanted because what if he didn't get it? What if he applied and they said no and then he had to keep working there knowing they didn't see him the way he saw himself? He'd been avoiding asking his girlfriend to move in together because what if she said no? What if she wasn't ready? What if she said no and then everything got awkward and eventually they broke up and he lost the best relationship he'd ever had? He'd been avoiding going to the gym in his own building because what if people saw him? What if they saw how out of shape he'd gotten? What if they judged him? What if the trainers there thought he was pathetic? Every single thing he was avoiding came back to the same thing: fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough, and the worst part, he knew it was irrational. He knew the promotion probably wouldn't be life-changing either way. He knew his girlfriend loved him. He knew nobody at the gym was watching him, because they were all too busy worrying about themselves. He knew all of this in his thinking brain, but his feeling brain didn't care. His feeling brain was still running from lions. Here's a statistic that might surprise you. In 2024, researchers at the University of California asked 2,000 professionals what they were most afraid of at work. The number one answer wasn't getting fired. It wasn't missing a deadline. It wasn't losing a client. The number one answer was looking stupid in front of colleagues. 43% of people said their biggest fear at work was appearing incompetent. Not actually being incompetent. Appearing incompetent. The perception was worse than the reality. Think about what that means. We are so afraid of what other people might think that we will literally avoid our own potential. We will stay small, stay quiet, stay stuck, just to avoid the possibility that someone might see us struggle. We have built entire lives around avoiding judgment, and the judgment isn't even real. It's just a story we tell ourselves. A story about what might happen. A story about what people might think. A story that keeps us safe and small and exactly where we are. James finally understood this in a way he never had before. He understood that his so-called laziness was actually a protection strategy. A very effective one. As long as he never tried, he never had to face the possibility that trying wasn't enough. As long as he never applied for the promotion, he could keep believing he deserved it. As long as he never asked his girlfriend to move in, he could keep believing she'd say yes. As long as he never went to the gym, he could keep believing he'd get in shape someday. The not knowing was uncomfortable, but the knowing could be devastating. And so his brain chose not knowing every single time. This is the identity trap. You think you're lazy. You've been telling yourself you're lazy for years. You've built a whole personality around it. You make jokes about it with your friends. You post memes about it on Instagram. You've turned your biggest limitation into a quirky personality trait because that's easier than admitting the truth. The truth is that you're scared. The truth is that you've been scared for a long time. The truth is that somewhere along the way, probably back in 2020 when the whole world fell apart, you decided it was safer to stop trying than to keep failing. And you've been living in that safety ever since. Even though the world has started moving again and you're still standing still, Maya doesn't know any of this yet. It's Wednesday afternoon, and she's at her desk, staring at the same spreadsheet she's been staring at for 3 hours. She's accomplished nothing today. She's accomplished nothing all week. She's starting to wonder if she's capable of accomplishing anything ever again. But something is different now. For the first time, she's not just feeling bad. She's getting curious. She's asking questions instead of making judgments. Why didn't I pick up my phone this morning? Why did I just lie there staring at the ceiling? What was I actually feeling in that moment? She closes a spreadsheet. She opens a blank document. She starts typing, not for work, just for herself. I feel stuck, she writes. I feel like I'm watching my life from the outside. I feel like everyone else figured something out that I missed. I feel like I'm running out of time. She reads the words back. They look dramatic on the screen. They feel true in her chest. She keeps typing. I used to be ambitious. I used to have plans. I used to believe I was going to do something important. Now I just want to get through the day without feeling terrible. When did that become enough? When did survival become the goal? She doesn't have answers. She doesn't even have good questions. But she has something she hasn't had in a long time. She has honesty. The sun is setting over Seattle. It's 5:47 p.m. Maya closes her laptop and walks to the window. For the first time in 5 days, she opens the blinds. The light hits her face and she has to squint. It's not even bright light. It's just normal evening light, the kind that happens every single day. But she's been hiding from it for so long that it feels overwhelming. She looks out at the city, at the other apartments full of other people living other lives, at the streets full of cars and buses and people walking home from work, at the world moving forward without waiting for her to catch up. And she feels something shift, not motivation, not inspiration, not a sudden burst of energy that will fade by tomorrow. Just a small, quiet recognition. I don't want to be this person anymore. Not the productive person. Not the successful person. Not the person who wakes up at a.m. and journals and works out and crushes goals. Just the person who isn't hiding. Just the person who tries. Just the person who shows up for her own life, instead of watching it from behind closed blinds. Here's what I want you to understand. Before we move on, the identity trap is the most dangerous trap there is, because it doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like the truth. It feels like you're finally being honest with yourself about who you are. I'm just a procrastinator. I'm just not a morning person. I'm just not as driven as other people. These aren't truths. They're stories. Stories you started telling yourself at some point, probably to protect yourself from disappointment. And stories you've been repeating ever since until they hardened into beliefs. But here's the thing about beliefs. They can be changed, not easily, not overnight, not without effort. But they can be changed. The brain is not fixed. The identity is not permanent. The person you've been is not the person you have to keep being. The first step is seeing the trap for what it is. The second step is deciding you want out. The third step is learning how, in the next part. I'm going to show you the specific 7-second technique that breaks this whole pattern open. It's not complicated. It's not expensive. It's not something you have to practice for months before it works. It's a biological intervention, a way to bypass the thinking brain entirely and get your body moving before your fear has a chance to stop you. It works because it doesn't ask you to change your beliefs first. It doesn't ask you to stop being scared. It doesn't ask you to become a different person. It just asks you to count backward from 5 and then move. That's it. That's the trick that most people never learn. That's the thing the self-help industry doesn't want you to know. That's the crack in the wall that lets the light in. But before we get to that, I need you to do something. I need you to look at the story you've been telling yourself about who you are. The one about being lazy. The one about not having enough discipline. The one about always starting and never finishing. I need you to ask yourself one question. What if that story isn't true? What if you're not lazy? What if you're just scared? And what if being scared is not a life sentence? What if it's just a feeling, and feelings change, and you don't have to wait for them to change before you start moving. Sit was that for a minute. Really, sit was it, because the answer to that question is a door, and on the other side of that door is everything you've been waiting for. The clock on Maya's microwave reads 6:47 p.m. She's standing in her kitchen in Seattle, staring at the leftovers from Sunday. 3 containers of Thai food that have been sitting there for 4 days now. She's been meaning to throw them out since Tuesday. It's Thursday. Her hand reaches for the container. Then it stops. Then it reaches for her phone instead. She opens Instagram. She scrolls past 3 posts. She closes Instagram. She looks at the container again. This is a moment. This tiny, insignificant moment that nobody will ever see or know about. This moment of deciding whether to do the thing or avoid the thing. This moment that feels like nothing but actually determines everything about who you become. Maya stands there for 30 seconds. The fridge is open. Cold air is spilling out onto her feet. The container is right there. She could just grab it. It would take 2 seconds, less than 2 seconds, but something is stopping her. Something invisible and powerful and completely irrational. She's not thinking about the Thai food. She's not thinking about the smell or the mold or the fact that she'll have to wash the container. She's thinking about what it means. She's thinking about the fact that she said she'd throw it out on Tuesday. She's thinking about the fact that she didn't. She's thinking about the fact that this is exactly the kind of small failure that proves she's exactly the kind of person who can follow through. The container isn't just a container anymore. It's evidence. And if she throws it out now, it's not just throwing out old food. It's admitting that she waited for days. It's admitting that she failed to do the thing when she said she would. It's easier to leave it there. It's easier to close the fridge and pretend she didn't see it. It's easier to wait until tomorrow when the evidence won't feel so fresh. This is a trap in action. This is fear wearing a disguise. This is a moment where most people lose, but something different happens this time. Maya remembers a video. She remembers the part about the 7 seconds. She remembers that her brain is lying to her, that this isn't about Thai food, that this is about a threat response left over from a million years ago. She takes a breath. She looks at a spot on the wall above the refrigerator. Just a blank spot where the paint is slightly lighter than the rest. And she starts counting. 5. Her hand is still on the fridge door. The cold air is still hitting her feet. Her brain is screaming that this is stupid, that she doesn't need to do this, that she can just close the door and deal with it later. 4. She feels a resistance in her chest, a tightness, a pressure, the same feeling she gets before she has to give a presentation or make a difficult phone call. Her body is treating old Thai food like a public speaking event. 3. The thought comes, what if I do it and nothing changes? What if I throw out the food and I still feel like a failure? What if this doesn't work? 2. She realizes she's been standing here for maybe 4 seconds, but it feels like 4 minutes. Time is stretching. The kitchen is too quiet. The refrigerator is humming. 1. She reaches in and grabs a container. That's it. That's the whole thing. She grabs the container, walks to the trash can, and drops it in. The lid wasn't even on properly. A little bit of sauce splatters on the side of the bag. She'll have to wipe that later. But right now, standing in her kitchen with an empty hand and a closed refrigerator, she feels something she hasn't felt in a long time. She feels like she just won, not because throwing out old food is an achievement, not because she did something hard or impressive or meaningful, but because for the first time in months, she did what she said she was going to do. She didn't negotiate. She didn't delay. She didn't let the fear win. She just counted and moved, and the world didn't end. Let me explain what just happened. Because it looks too simple. It looks like a gimmick. It looks like the kind of thing you'd scroll past on social media with a little eye roll and a thought like, sure, counting to 5, that'll fix my whole life. But there's real science here. Real biology. Real reason this works when nothing else does. Remember the threat response we talked about earlier? The one that makes your brain register a difficult task like a saber-toothed tiger. That response has a specific duration. It peaks at around 5 to 10 seconds. After that, if nothing bad has happened, your brain starts to calm down. It realizes there's no actual danger. It lowers the shields, but here's a catch. You have to survive those 5 to 10 seconds without giving in. Most people don't. Most people, when they feel that spike of resistance, immediately look for relief. They pick up the phone. They open another tab. They decide to do it later. They do anything to make the uncomfortable feeling go away, and every time they do that, they teach their brain something important. They teach their brain that resistance works. They teach their brain that avoidance is a solution to discomfort. They teach their brain that the way to feel better is to run away. After enough repetitions, this becomes automatic. You don't even feel the choice anymore. You just feel the urge to scroll, and you scroll. You just feel the urge to delay, and you delay. The whole thing happens in a fraction of a second, below the level of conscious thought. The counting interrupts that. The counting forces you to pause, forces you to be present, forces you to ride out the wave of resistance instead of being swept away by it. 5 seconds is long enough for the initial spike to pass. 4 seconds is long enough to remember who you want to be. 3 seconds is long enough to choose. 2 seconds is long enough to act. 1 second is long enough to change everything. Maya closes the trash can lid. She stands there for a moment, just breathing. The kitchen looks exactly the same. The counter is still messy. The sink still has dishes. Nothing has changed except one small action. But something has changed. Something inside her. She just kept a promise to herself. A tiny promise. An insignificant promise. The kind of promise that most people break every single day without even noticing. But she kept it. And keeping promises to yourself is like putting money in a bank account. $1 doesn't feel like much, but $1,000 feels different. $1,000,000 feels different. And you can't get to $1 million without the first dollar. This was her first dollar. Let me tell you about someone else who learned this. A guy named Marcus who lived in Atlanta. Marcus was 38 years old in 2024. He worked in sales. He was good at his job. He made 6 figures. He had a wife and 2 kids in the house in the suburbs. And he hadn't exercised in 7 years, not once. 7 years. He'd tell himself he would start on Monday. Monday would come and he'd be tired from work and he'd tell himself Tuesday. Tuesday would come and he'd have a late meeting and he'd tell himself Wednesday. Wednesday would come and he'd remember that he needed to buy new shoes and he'd tell himself next week. 7 years, his doctor told him his blood pressure was too high. His wife told him she missed the way he used to look. His kids asked him to play basketball and he'd say he was too tired. He knew he needed to change. He wanted to change. He just couldn't make himself start. One night in November, he was scrolling YouTube and found a video about the 7-second rule. He watched it. He thought it was stupid. He almost clicked away, but something made him keep watching. The next morning, he woke up at 6:15 a.m. His alarm went off. His first thought was, I'll work out tomorrow. His second thought was, 5. He looked at the ceiling. He counted backward. At 1, he threw off the covers and stood up. He stood in his bedroom in the dark, in his boxers, not knowing what to do next. He hadn't planned this far. He didn't have shoes. He didn't have clothes laid out. He didn't even know where his gym bag was, but he was standing. And standing was more than he'd done in 7 years. That first day, Marcus didn't work out. He just stood there for about 30 seconds, feeling confused and a little ridiculous. Then he went to the bathroom and brushed his teeth. Not exactly a victory by most standards, but here's what happened next. The next morning, he did it again. Woke up, felt the resistance, counted backward, stood up. This time he walked to the kitchen and made coffee. Still not a workout. The third morning, he stood up and walked to the closet. He found an old pair of running shoes from 2017. They were dusty but they fit. The fourth morning, he put the shoes on. The fifth morning, he walked to the front door. The sixth morning, he opened the door. The seventh morning, he stepped outside. It took him a full week to actually leave the house. 7 days of just standing up. 7 days of tiny victories that felt like nothing but were actually everything. Because here's the truth about change. Change doesn't happen in big leaps. Change happens in millimeters. Change happens in the space between the alarm and the standing up. Change happens in the decision to count instead of scroll. Marcus didn't become a different person overnight. He became a slightly different person every morning. 1 5-second count at a time. By December, he was walking around his neighborhood for 20 minutes every day. By February, he was jogging. By April, he joined a gym. By June, his wife cried when she saw him without his shirt on. Not because he looked like a model, because he looked like himself again. The version of himself he'd been 7 years ago. The version she'd married, all from a stupid little trick that most people scroll past. Here's a statistic that changed everything for me when I first heard it. In 2022, researchers at the University of Southern California studied habit formation in adults. They wanted to know what predicted success. Was it motivation? Willpower? Discipline? Goal setting? No. The single biggest predictor of whether someone would stick with a new habit was something called instant initiation speed, the time between thinking about doing the thing and actually starting to do the thing. People who started within 5 seconds were 80% more likely to still be doing the habit 6 months later. People who waited longer than 5 seconds, they almost all quit. 80%. Think about that. Not the habit itself, not the difficulty of the task, not the amount of willpower required, just the speed of starting. The gap between thought and action. Close that gap, and you change everything. Leave it open, and nothing changes. Maya doesn't know this statistic yet, but she's living it. It's now 7:15 p.m. on Thursday night. She's sitting on her couch, laptop open, work email up. There's one message she's been avoiding all day, a project update she needs to send to her team. It would take 10 minutes, maybe less. She's been avoiding it for 6 hours. Her cursor hovers over the email. Her fingers rest on the keyboard, but she's not typing. She's thinking about what to say. She's thinking about whether it's good enough. She's thinking about what David will think when he reads it. She's thinking about all the ways it could be wrong. 5 seconds pass. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. The resistance builds. She closes the laptop. She tells herself she'll do it tomorrow morning when she's fresh. She tells herself it's better to wait until she can focus. She tells herself all the lies she always tells herself, but then she remembers the Thai food. She remembers how it felt to just do it. She remembers that the counting worked. She opens the laptop again. 5. The cursor is blinking. The email is still there. Nothing has changed except that now she's choosing to look at it. 4. Her heart is beating faster. This is ridiculous. It's an email. It's not dangerous, but her body doesn't know that. 3. She thinks about closing it again. She thinks about how easy it would be to just wait. She thinks about all the reasons this is a bad idea. 2. She starts typing. Just one sentence. Just the first thing that comes to mind. 1. She's typing. The words are coming. They're not perfect. They're not even good. But they're coming. 20 minutes later, the email is sent. Maya closes the laptop and leans back on the couch. She feels light. Not happy exactly. Not proud. Just light. Like something that was heavy has been lifted. She looks at her phone. She hasn't touched it in 20 minutes. That might be a record. She picks it up and looks at the screen. 3 notifications. None of them matter. She puts it back down. She sits in the quiet of her apartment and thinks about what just happened. She thinks about all the times she's heard people say just start and rolled her eyes because it sounded like nonsense. She thinks about all the books she's read and videos she's watched and advice she's ignored. Just start.it sounded so simple. So stupid, so dismissive of how hard it actually feels. But now she gets it. Now she understands. Just start doesn't mean the starting is easy. Just start means the starting comes first. Before you're ready, before you feel motivated, before you know what you're doing, before anything else. Just start means counting backward from 5 and moving before your brain can stop you. Just start means trusting that action creates motivation, not the other way around. Just start means being willing to be bad at something for 5 minutes instead of being good at nothing forever. Here's what nobody tells you about the first step. The first step is always ugly. The first email you write after months of avoiding will be awkward. The first workout after years of sitting will be pathetic. The first conversation after weeks of silence will be clumsy. The first attempt at anything after a long time of nothing will be embarrassing. That's not a bug. That's a feature. The ugliness is proof that you're doing it right. The awkwardness is evidence that you're breaking the pattern. The imperfection is the whole point. Perfectionism is just fear in fancy clothes. Perfectionism is a voice that says, don't try until you know you'll succeed. Perfectionism is the enemy of starting. And the only way to beat perfectionism is to be willing to be bad. Bad at first. Bad for a while. Bad until you're not. Maya's email wasn't great. She knows that. She'll probably look at it tomorrow and cringe at some of the phrasing. But it's sent. It's done. And tomorrow, when she writes the next one, it'll be a tiny bit easier. And the next one after that. Easier still. Not because she's getting better at emails, because she's getting better at starting. The clock on her phone says 8:32 p.m. Maya has the rest of the night ahead of her. No more work. No more obligations. Just free time, which used to feel like a trap. Like too much space to fill with scrolling and guilt. But tonight feels different. She stands up from the couch. She walks to her bookshelf. The one with the 17 unread books. She runs her finger along the spines. She stops at the one she bought 4 months ago. Atomic Habits. Page 23. She pulls it off the shelf. She sits back down on the couch. She opens to page 23. And she starts reading. This is where most people quit. Not because the task is too hard. Not because they don't have time. Not because they're lazy. Because the first step didn't feel like enough. They throw out the old food and expect to feel transformed. They send the email and expect to feel accomplished. They read 1 page and expect to feel like a reader. When they don't feel transformed, they assume it didn't work. They assume the trick was just another gimmick. They go back to the old patterns, the old excuses, the old identity. But that's not how it works. The first step is never enough. That's why it's the first step. There have to be more. There have to be hundreds more, thousands more, a lifetime more. The first step is just proof that you can move. The second step is proof that you can keep moving. The third step is where it starts to get interesting. Maya reads for 20 minutes. She gets to page 43. She learns about something called habit stacking. She learns about the difference between outcomes and identities. She learns that she's been approaching this all wrong for years. She closes the book and looks around her apartment. Same couch, same walls, same life, but something is different. She's not the same person who woke up this morning. That person threw out old food and sent an email and read a book. That person did 3 things she said she would do. That person kept 3 promises to herself in a single day. That person is starting to believe something new. Not that she's productive. Not that she's disciplined. Not that she's successful. Just that she's capable of starting. Capable of following through. Capable of being the kind of person who does what she says she's going to do. That belief is fragile right now. It's new. It hasn't been tested much. One bad day could shatter it. One failure could send her right back to the old story, the old identity, the old trap. But for tonight, it's enough. For tonight, she sits on her couch with a book in her lap and a quiet apartment around her and a feeling she almost doesn't recognize. Peace, not excitement, not motivation, not inspiration, just peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing, for this one moment, that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, Tomorrow will bring new resistance. Tomorrow will bring the same old brain with the same old fears, trying the same old tricks to keep her safe and small. But tomorrow will also bring the countdown, 5 seconds. That's all it takes to interrupt the pattern. That's all it takes to choose again. That's all it takes to remember who you're becoming. 5 seconds, over and over, for the rest of your life. That's the work. That's the war. And now that you've seen the first battle, now that you've watched someone win it, now that you know the trick that most people never learn, the question is what you'll do with the next 5 seconds. The question is whether you'll count, or whether you'll scroll. The question is whether you're ready for part 4, because part 4 is where things get real. Part 4 is where we stop talking about starting and start talking about staying. Part 4 is the daily war, the grind, the middle part that nobody films but everybody lives, and it's coming next.